This is our 100th episode.
Woo! 100 episodes.
Yeah.
Roll
100.
that beautiful bean footage.
Hello, Marine One. Are you in position?
Yes, Mr. President.
You may proceed with your mission.
Roger that. PopCon 1, we're a go. Light 'em up, boys.
Hello and welcome to the Pop Culture Contrarian podcast. Before we get started, go to patriotpostshop.com and buy some of our merchandise. We've got this lovely shirt. It says "The truth will set you free." Probably can't see it, but we'll have it up on screen. It's Veritas Vos Liberabit in Latin. That's our motto.
Doesn't actually say that on the shirt.
No, it says "The truth will set you free" on the shirt. You're going to see it on the screen, though, so you already know anyhow. Go buy that there at patriotpostshop.com. That's one of the best ways to support us. The best way to support us is to go to patriotpost.us and give us your email address for our free daily newsletter. It's right. It's free. Go do that. We are Thomas, Sterling, and Andrew. And this, guys, this is our 100th episode.
Celebrate good times, come on.
Here's a shout out to the Pop Culture Contrarian podcast. It's a wonderful podcast. Great people over there. Sterling, Thomas, and Andrew. Great men, all of them. They're doing amazing work. I've been following them since the start, and they just hit a huge milestone. 100 episodes. Incredible job. Congratulations. Keep up the good work, men. And I look forward to the next 100 episodes.
Thank you, Donald Trump.
It blew you away.
Yes,
I'm sure.
it was. We reached out to Donald Trump, and he was like, "Well, guys, I don't really know. I don't like to do this, but because it's you, I guess I'll have to record this little video for you."
Everyone says you're the best. They say it. I'm not saying it. They're saying it.
Yes, many have said it. All right,
It was AI. Thanks. Thank you, AI.
yeah. Just to be clear,
But we don't use AI.
Which AI?
no,
All
of them.
All of them.
Yeah, it was Skynet.
Wow.
Actually, we are all AI right now. We are all
Yes.
Terminators.
100th episode is the AI reveal.
Yes.
We will
I
terminate
don't know.
you.
I think I'm actual intelligence,
You think you're actual intelligence?
Actual
That's
intelligence.
what AI stands for in your
not
case.
artificial.
But you're still a robot.
Yes, we can. We're all actual intelligence, AI. Yes. What about you? What did you think it was, Sterling?
Actual intelligence, yes, of course. Did you know that I am a human with skin that I grew on my body? I am human with human skin.
Remarkable. Thank you.
Okay, all right, that was quite the little rabbit trail. This is our 100th episode, which we're very excited about, as you can tell. We thought we would use this time to kind of, let you know who we are. What are we doing here? Why on earth would you listen to us?
Yes.
I'm sure a lot of you are asking yourselves that question right now.
Yes. Probably most of the time when you listen to our episodes.
Stick around to find out.
Okay, so Pop Culture Contrarian 100th episode. Here's the thesis that we kind of came up with in our planning session. Podcasts are, as we think, the future of liberty. We would like you to support us as we build ours. We thought there was a need to really get out there and promote our voices. So let's just start with the first question. Why are we doing this? Why are we called the Pop Culture Contrarian?
First and foremost, this is free speech activity. And that's the First Amendment. And it's vital for all Americans and people who have something to say to exercise and use your freedoms. They've been hard fought. They're given to you by God and through the blood of patriots. And we owe it to everyone aforementioned to exercise these rights. So first and foremost, that's why we're using a platform to speak and exercise free speech. But the key theme is pop culture, and then the contrarian to that. Essentially, from a conservative standpoint, we're filtering the culture or the pop culture through the worldview of liberty.
Yeah.
And that's important because that's a powerful cultural drive right now in America is pop culture. It impacts everything.
Yeah.
And they say politics. I think Ben Shapiro has famously said, and originally I think it was Breitbart, that politics is downstream from culture.
Yeah.
So where should we start by engaging the culture to impact our future political situation?
Thomas, do you want to answer the question, and then I'll answer it
I
last?
mean, I think culture matters, and pop culture, popular culture, is one of the ways in which we most, I think, recognize it or access it. And oftentimes it can be seen as frivolous or not serious or just entertainment.
Yeah, like TV, movies.
Right. But actually,
theme.
there's a lot of messaging and expression of culture's values within that.
Sure.
And so what we kind of are existing to do, and I think why we wanted to enter this space, number one, we wanted to enter the podcast sphere because it's growing by leaps and bounds. And so this is kind of the next
Frontier,
that's a good word, for engaging in the conversation in one sense, and literally. But also I think we are coming from it with an idea of kind of evaluating, like, what do we like? What do we value? What do we hate? What do we think needs to be changed, et cetera? And we're kind of entering that and wanting to engage it and say, this is a good thing. This is not so good of a thing. And then there's a lot of kind of gray nuance, trying to figure it out. There's some positives here and there's some negatives here. We want to try to be in that conversation. And I think understanding it, learning it is the best way.
You said a lot of times we're saying this is good, this is bad, this is great. One thing that I think is probably a trend across most of our reviews is what we had before was actually pretty good, guys. There was no need to change that one.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty common thing. We are conservatives. We like conserving things, it's kind of natural. And we're Christians, and the culture used to be more Christian. But why are we doing this, and why are we called the pop culture? So why are we doing this? A few years ago, working here at the Patriot Post, which is the overarching organization, I went to our boss with the idea, hey, I'm 20-something at that time, and I don't really read emails, which is our primary means of communication. Is we write this Patriot Post that goes out every day at noon, Monday through Friday, and it's an email with whatever the news of the day is. And I don't think many 20-somethings are reading emails, at least not every day. And I think one place a lot of young people do go to get their news and get their information and get their opinions is podcasts. We toyed around with, should we just do a news podcast or should we do something else? And we ended up with the cultural podcast, which is how we got to Pop Culture Contrarians, because we're always saying, no, actually the culture is going in the wrong direction. Because that was just kind of the people who were available to do the podcast, Thomas, Sterling, and Andrew, are more cultural commentators than, straight news guys. I guess we all do a little bit of everything here.
Yeah.
But culture seemed the natural fit, and so that's what we ended up doing. And we've made it 100 episodes so far.
Yeah.
Here's to another 100, and I hope you notice that we get better every time.
We are evolving, culture evolves. And so I push back a little on you by saying we're trying to get back to something. There's elements of that, but I also think there's a distinct future development that we need to be. I think conservatives have often been faulted, and probably rightly so, for being kind of static or behind the times, and rather than engaging in it and being a part of developing it. And so I think this is part of what we're trying to do, is be in it and seek to direct it in a more positive fashion that we would view value-wise than ceding that ground.
We've seen podcasts have already really shifted that goal.
Oh, yeah.
Particularly in the last election, the Joe Rogan Experience podcast with Donald Trump. And then, of course, his whole podcast tour was incredibly effective.
Yeah.
And even since last year, podcasts in general have increased even greater than in subsequent years in statistics we're seeing about the podcast industry in general. And I really think that the conservative push into the podcast space, that's an area in media that I don't know that we own it, but we have
the advantage.
An advantage that previously we haven't had in other media spaces.
Yeah. Podcasts are kind of like talk radio, right? And talk radio in the 90s was dominated by one man, really, Rush Limbaugh. But that was kind of the cutting edge then, ironically. Young people may not associate radio with the 90s, but it was pretty big then. On the topic of being on the cutting edge and trying to push conservatism into cultural areas where they're not always super prominent, that's been kind of a goal of the Patriot Post all along.
Yeah.
When the Patriot Post was founded in 1995, or was it
96?
96.
We're coming up on 30 years.
Coming up on 30 years. You had Rush Limbaugh on talk radio, you had Fox News just getting started, and then you had the Patriot Post on online and email. And that was who you had for conservative media. And now, of course, there's way more conservative media, but the Patriot Post has always been involved in this, and the Pop Culture Contrarian is our attempt to keep up with the times, and maybe we have some new ideas that will continue to be useful. That's why we're doing this, as we want to try to have a conservative voice in the culture, and we think this is as close to the cutting edge as you can get right now. Thomas and Andrew, why are we worth listening to?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I'll go first. I think we're not professionals, obviously. We're not celebrities. We are everyday average Americans who have an opportunity to express our viewpoints and our voice, kind of like what Andrew was alluding to earlier. I think this is the reason why this forum, I think, had been so impactful in the last election, is because it does allow for genuine conversations to happen and ideas to be presented and debated without kind of a gatekeeper entity basically saying you're allowed to think this or you're not allowed to think this, or all these different things.
Mainstream media.
Sorry, our producer's telling us we can't say that.
I've been thinking about you all the time.
So I think what we present is just that. We're an expression of that kind of ideal, and which I think is the heart of the American spirit. Everyday average citizens expressing themselves in public forum as this is, or with their friends.
I liken it to our Christian roots, and particularly Isaiah. I think it's 6:8, when the Lord comes and says, "Whom shall I send?" And he said, "Here I am, send me." And sometimes that's a hard thing to stand up for, but it's regular people who stand up and say that all the time. It's not celebrities necessarily. It's, not even politicians. It's regular American patriots who stand up and said, "Hey, I believe in something, and I'm available, and I'll stand in the gap."
I think that's a really good point, Andrew, is, why are we worth listening to? Well, it's one where we stood up and we said, "Hey, we'll try to push back on some of this stuff." Because especially think back, our first episodes on YouTube were from 2023. I think it starts on episode 6. The first 5 exist, but maybe you're better off not seeing those. And then there's even more actually before episode 1. And so we really started in 2022. That's when we started trying to make a podcast. And at that time, especially think back, Elon didn't own X yet in early 2022. No. And right-wing culture seemed to be verboten. You just weren't allowed to say many of the, you weren't allowed to say retard, for instance. Now we're allowed to say it again because we won.
We won the culture war.
I don't know if that's the greatest prize of right-wing culture.
I don't know.
Well, we don't have to be afraid to speak up anymore.
Right.
And nobody should be afraid to speak up about what they believe in.
But many people were. Yeah. And justifiably, because they could very likely lose their jobs. And that was one of our benefits, and one of the reasons we were able to launch this podcast is we never had any fear that if we said something conservative, our boss was going to get upset at us.
Right.
If you say boys can't become girls, our boss is going to say absolutely right. He's not going to fire us. And so we were protected from that side of the censorship regime. And so we had I think even a responsibility to make our voices heard when that censorship was going on so strongly. Now, of course, we're in a different place. And so we're trying to find our new ground to stand on, because conservative voices are somewhat ascendant. And because we always do pop culture, that always gives us an angle. It's always, how does this movie apply to, conservative principles? And just one more thing I'll say on why we're worth listening to is the three of us, I think, in our personal lives are the most in tune with the news of the people we know outside of work. I know I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
And so
but we're also regular dudes.
Yeah, we're still regular dudes, but we know what's going on. And we know, if you ask me about what Elon said to Trump or what, the president of South Africa did, I can tell you about it because I've been following it, and we write about it and all sorts of stuff. And so we know what's going on. And so when we give these opinions on these movies, we can sometimes, I think, see trends that aren't obvious to the naked eye because we know some of the background going on.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Well, that's two of our questions. We're moving through these pretty quick, so I guess we'll just keep on going. Where do you guys hope this takes us?
My biggest hope is just to get a whole bunch of subscribers on YouTube. So go to YouTube and subscribe, hit that notification bell, and like this podcast episode.
Yeah, and you can join the people telling me that I don't like Andor because I'm Cyril Karn, the Imperial dude. You're wrong, but also Cyril Karn is the most admirable person in that show up until he gets betrayed by his girlfriend.
And also, you guys had a good point about having not watched the show completely. It's like, why are you commenting on this having not watched the show? It's like, just because I'm a regular dude.
Yeah. Hey, 24 episodes. It's a lot to watch, guys. I did it. I don't recommend it. So,
kids, guys.
I would say Andrew made the smart call on that one. So let Sterling do the slog work of getting through Andor.
Yes. But
so
yeah,
difficult. I'm already through episode 4 of the second season, so
there you go. Well,
I'm
doing good.
enjoying it.
well,
It is.
from there on, it gets much better. So
Yeah, we'll see. I'll see if I agree with that assessment.
but back to the question.
Yeah.
Where do we want to be? And, I'm not going to put a number on anything. And the YouTube thing is just kind of a personal thing that I really like. I happen to really like YouTube, always have. So I just really want to see us succeed on there. It is also the #1 platform for podcasting.
Oh, yeah. It's where I go for
As
all my
of
podcasts.
2025, it's like the lion's share now.
Has it always been, or is this
No.
Okay, when did it
No.
happen? This past year?
I'll have to look at the numbers. It's been the past couple of years.
Okay.
I always got my podcast on YouTube because I'm so smart. So
Yes.
So everyone who listens to this, who listens to it on other platforms,
you're still very smart because you listen
we
to
like
us.
you listening there as well.
Yes.
But you know what? I love to talk to some other people. I love to have some guests on the show
Yeah.
and hear some opinions outside of just us. We talk to people, but outside of just us, but we don't have them on the show. So I'd really like to see that happen. I want people to listen to us and get something helpful about what we're saying. And I just want to be helpful.
Yeah. Thomas, do you have thoughts?
I just want to see us on the moon someday. That's it.
To the moon.
That's the goal.
Episode 1998,
Yeah.
our moon episode.
Moon.
Broadcasting from the
mean-
moon.
Maybe with a space base built up there, 20 years, who knows?
Doing a little math there.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how many weeks that is. I think that's several hundred years. So it's dozens at least.
My point.
Yeah.
36 years.
Yeah. I'm just excited to see where it goes. I would like more, obviously, for our channel number of subscribers to grow. I mean, that's anybody's goal who starts a podcast. We want to influence. We want to kind of influence how people think about things, or at least cause them to ask questions and maybe consider things from a different perspective. That's it. And since we're looking at things that matter to everybody, pop culture is it does matter, like I said before. And maybe sometimes it's good to just more deeply consider some things.
I have always enjoyed being able to have a discussion with somebody, especially someone who disagrees with me and is willing to disagree with me and not just back down because I push back hard. Because I do push back hard. But if you are willing to stand up and say, no, actually, you're wrong and stupid, then I actually enjoy that because that lets me refine my thinking.
So
And
I get to say you're stupid?
you can say I'm stupid when I'm stupid, which is very, very rarely.
You can say he's retarded.
You can say I'm retarded. Yes, you can. So that's one thing I'd like to see is more conversations. Guests, I would love to start having some guests on and be able to challenge and be challenged by those guests. I want to be having the conversations that you find interesting with the people you find interesting. That's what I would like to do. So engaging in the conversation at the right moment when it's, at its peak, that's an important thing to do. I want to become the person I listen to on YouTube, which is, there's all sorts of people I listen to on YouTube, and they're always addressing topical cultural issues in a way, usually, that I haven't heard before. That's what I want to do. That's who I want to be. That's what I aspire to. And so I'm trying to become someone who has an opinion that's worth listening to. So, with this podcast, that's a great way to do it. If I can, start writing columns one day, something you could read, that'd be great. I really do pay a lot of attention to politics, way more than is healthy, probably. And I tried to look for other career paths, and I ended up on politics. So I'm going to dig in on this one, and I'm going to learn everything I can about it. And when you ask me a question about, hey, what was going on with that back in 2025, I'll be able to tell you because I'll remember it. And just, yeah, that's who I want to be. I want to be a political commentator, I guess. It's kind of a new aspiration for me, but I've realized that's what I want to do. And this is my little way of doing that.
Yes. For
Not
100
so little
episodes.
for long, though.
For 100 episodes.
Yes. What have y'all really enjoyed about doing this podcast for the past 100 episodes? What's just something that stands out to you as I really enjoyed getting to do that?
My favorite thing has been figuring out how it works. Getting the gear together, building the sets, creating the social media presence, the integrating it with other systems, all that kind of stuff.
Well, cool.
Yeah. I enjoy being constantly challenged, engaged in maybe areas of pop culture that I wouldn't naturally gravitate to. It's good to try to see what's new, be challenged to kind of see what may be happening that I otherwise would be absolutely unaware of. And to think through some of the deeper ideas of maybe what are we missing. There's a lot of assumptions sometimes in our era in which we live, kind of the ultra information age, it would be one way to put it. We have so much data at our fingertips. There can come out of that kind of a hubris that we really know what we're doing, even culturally speaking, and the movement boundaries and challenging of old boundaries is become so commonplace that it's even this some assumption that if you aren't challenging the boundaries, somehow you're doing something wrong. Whereas Scripture warns us, don't move the boundaries unless you really understand why they're there and where you're moving them to. There needs to be kind of a pause. And maybe this part of what we do is ask questions about, hey, was this a good idea or is this a bad idea? And what could potentially be the result of the culture moving this way?
Well, we're asking, they challenge the boundary. We see the result of that challenge, and then we try to review it. Like, how did that challenge work out?
Yeah. When we talk about, we've talked often about woke, which is kind of one of the latest ones that's really challenging the whole identity of what America is. And, we push back on a lot of it because a lot of it, quite honestly, is just deceptive, a lie.
Yeah.
But I think you have to be bold enough to kind of say it, but you also have to understand what it is about it that may be wrong. And they're like the best lies, there's always grains of truth. And being able to recognize that and how it's being used to twist people emotionally often into accepting the bigger lie that is the poison. And, that's always a challenge because not always, sometimes it seems obvious, but there's a lot of times that maybe we're missing stuff. And that's helpful too with commenters. If you see us missing something, like really, all of us have blind spots. If you see it, let us know. Yeah. We read them and we take it to heart.
Yeah, those are really good points. So good that I temporarily forgot what I was going to say. But just things I like about doing this podcast. One thing I really like is we get to go see these movies and watch these TV shows. And sometimes it's Andor and that's a bummer. But other times it's, Oppenheimer and that was a really good movie.
Yeah.
And so I do enjoy that. The other thing is this is going to be shocking to both of you guys. I'm sure you're just going to completely gasp and clutch your pearls, and so will the audience. I like having a soapbox. I like it when I get to say what I think and people listen to it.
Shocked.
I enjoy that.
Shocked, I tell you.
Yeah.
Sometimes more than others, right?
This is the real reason.
Yes.
Candid opportunity.
Yeah, I went to our boss and I said, I want to talk and make people listen.
Yep.
And he's like, okay.
And he said, here's your soapbox.
He's like, you can talk, but I can't guarantee they'll listen.
Yeah. Yep. Well, guys, we've run through our questions. We've run through our topic. Y'all got anything else about making these 100 episodes that you really feel we should include here?
I just want to say I'm proud that we've been consistent, and that we've always shown up, that even when it's been mountains, we've had a few of them. We've had to overcome a bunch of stuff to get to where we are, and just so appreciate everyone who supported us. Really appreciate our listeners and our viewers. Really appreciate our parent organization, the Patriot Post, for giving us the opportunity to do this and the chance to hopefully make a difference.
Yeah, and I'll just add, since I think all of us have friends and family listening, thank you, guys.
Hi, Mom.
Yeah. Hi, Mom. Hi, Grandma. Y'all actually are really big parts of what we're doing here, so thank you. And for everyone who does not personally know us, thank you guys. We hope you'll tell your friends about us. And
Oh, it's been fun running into listeners of the show, especially at the NRA annual meeting when we went there for the Patriot Post. We had people come up, hey, you're on that podcast, aren't you? And that was pretty fun.
we have a little trip down memory lane for you here at the
yes.
end. And so enjoy that, and it'll tell you all you need to know.
Yes, but meanwhile, we've been the Pop Culture Contrarian.
Yes. We are the Pop Culture Contrarian. Find us on Spotify, YouTube, wherever you find your podcasts. Hit that bell on YouTube, as Andrew said earlier. Make sure to subscribe to the patriotpost.us. It's right, it's free. It's the oldest conservative news digest on the web. We'll see you next week, and enjoy this trip down memory lane. Bye.
Bye.
See you later.